If you have ever had the desire to become an educator in our space, or even wondered what it takes, today's episode is for you. I have a very special guest on, Mariette Martinez, who is actually an Intuit educator. She has been mentoring and educating in our space for several years now, and we were connected through multiple ways, through multiple people and programs. We keep crossing paths. And so we decided it was time to have her on the podcast. So in this episode, you're going to hear us just having a real conversation about the mindset shifts that you have to make as an entrepreneur, and maybe even ask of your clients, becoming an educator in the accounting space, launching programs through a challenge method, and so much more. This is a really awesome episode. I hope you tune in and give it a listen. And if you find something valuable in this episode, please take a screenshot and tag me and Mariette on Instagram, shout us out on LinkedIn, write a review of the episode, whatever you have to do. We would just love to hear your takeaways and ahas. So without further ado, I am going to let you just listen to the conversation. Right at the top, Mariette will be introducing herself. So you'll get the bio and the background from her. All right, let's get to it. Hey, and welcome to the Ambitious Bookkeeper Podcast. I'm Serena Shoup. I am a CPA, a mom of 3, and I'm running a virtual bookkeeping business mostly from my home. You're in the right place if you're a bookkeeper, accountant, or an accounting student, and you know that your purpose is bigger than sitting in a cubicle. If you're ready to learn some actionable tips and strategies to help you start and grow a bookkeeping or accounting business, I hope you stick around. All right. Welcome to the Ambitious Bookkeeper Podcast, Mariette. I'm so excited to have you. I can't believe we waited this long. We're already in the second year of podcasting, and this is the first time I've had you on. Like, how did that even happen?
I know. Trust me. I mean, I have had other podcast interviews. And so forgive me if anyone's listening and like, hey, I've had you as an interviewee, but I literally am so excited about this. I don't know if I've been this excited, and everyone will understand why, but we are just so aligned in so many ways. And I'm excited to talk about that.
Awesome. So anyone who doesn't know who you are, can you please introduce yourself and your background and why are you even here today?
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there are many, many people that don't know who I am. So my name is Mariette Martinez. Really quick background is I have been in the accounting industry for over 20 years. So I am an accountant by trade, and in about 7-ish years, I actually transitioned completely from a practitioner of over 20 years to an educator. So it took me about 7 years to move out of my practice and get completely into education. And now I have a learning center called Master Books that educates the early stage entrepreneur to build their financial and business literacy from the inside out.
Awesome. And you are an educator in our space. Am I correct?
Yes. So I start with the early stage entrepreneur because, to be honest, and maybe we'll talk about that, early stage cannot necessarily be your early, meaning you just started. It means early stage, meaning you're finally intentionally going to build that entrepreneurship as a way to build wealth. And many times people think of entrepreneurship as maybe a side hustle, or I'm just doing this to kind of bring some extra money. But entrepreneurship is a full-term game. Like, you have to go all in on entrepreneurship. It's not truly a side hustle. And maybe you and I will talk more about what that reality is. And so an early stage entrepreneur is someone that intentionally wants to take that step to build a business for sustainability, for profitability, and for whatever their bigger goals is. Many times it's generational wealth. That's one of my big goals. And as she dearly mentioned, and I'll just say it, so my ideal learners are bookkeepers and accountants that have chosen entrepreneurship to build their businesses. Yep.
Yeah. So you teach at QuickBooks conferences and stuff in person or just online or both?
Yeah. So my earlier education journey actually started through Intuit. So Intuit is one of my strategic partners. I am on their Intuit education team. And so you may have heard me teach. You were getting your QuickBooks online certification. I'm one of the certification trainers. I also had the pleasure for several years to be on their trainer tour, which I don't know if you knew, but it's a national tour that goes all over the US. And basically Intuit runs out these beautiful halls. And we, as trainers and as part of this experience, provide you training all day. And then at the end of the day, you actually can get your certification. You also get breakfast, lunch, and you get lunch with the trainers. And essentially, we want you to leave with your certification at the end of the day. So that's how the live experiences were for many, many years until, of course, 2020, when they had to stop any live experiences. And we took the entire certification training virtual. And so now you can do this all virtually.
Are they going to be doing this at the next QuickBooks Connect?
Yes. So like we're holding our breath and crossing our fingers that we are going to start teaching certification live again, not only at QuickBooks Connect, which is an annual conference that also was a way for us to teach live. It started in 2014, was live till 2019, went virtual in 20 and 21, but we are going live again in December 2022. And so we are going to bring QuickBooks certification there, but we are hopefully going to do a national tour as well. So we're
exciting.
hoping. Yeah, I'm very excited to be part of that again.
Yeah. Well, I have my ticket for QuickBooks Connect, and I know like people are probably listening like, Serena, you hate QuickBooks, like you don't even use it. But like, I just want to be there.
And Serena, let me just tell you something about that. I just got chills when you said that, because even though, again, it's called QuickBooks Connect, so people right away are like, okay, wait, you don't use QuickBooks, you don't support QuickBooks, why would you be there? Honestly, the people that go there, it's like Intuit has a way of bringing really amazing people, like amazing humans, into a space that are just full of knowledge, like incredibly brilliant. This is a global conference. But not only that, these humans want to give. They're literally there to just give them themselves, their knowledge or experience. They're the ones that are like sitting on the side benches because QuickBooks makes it really cute. And they'll put like swings in the conference. Like literally, you'll be walking the halls and there's swings. Yeah, they have swings. They have picnic tables. They have those big little cushy chairs where you're just like lounging with your friends. And this is the kind of experience where you're literally going there to connect. That's why even though QuickBooks is the first word, the second word is really what the conference is about. It's about connecting. So it makes perfect sense. You're going to be there, by the way.
Yeah, no, I have to. I'm going to be at XeroCon too in New Orleans this month. Well, when this airs, maybe it'll be August. I don't know. Yeah, it will. So yeah, I just decided like, this is the year, like conferences are back. I'm going to be where my people are. And so if you want to hang out, I'm sure you're going to be there, right?
Oh, no. Yes, I'm going to be there. And yes, we're going to hang out. And by the way, I love you said that, because what I do, just like a little secret, because I think we're going to give some of our little secrets today. But when I go to a conference, I actually have a bucket list. And so, I have a goals list first of like, what are my main intentions of going and what are my goals before and after I leave? Usually I keep them at 3, but then I have a separate list, which is a human bucket list. And those are the human beings I want to hang out with. Yeah. And, maybe have a drink with, or maybe even like, let's get up really early and take a walk together. And so if you're cool with it, I can add you to my bucket list.
I better be on your bucket list. You were on mine.
Oh,
all right, cool. Well, we were planning on talking about connecting and building partnerships and collaborations. So I know that that's been crucial in my success as a leader in our space, or an influencer, as much as we don't want to talk about like, that's what we are, that's our responsibility. Like, you're listening to this podcast, I, must be worth listening to, but there's a lot of responsibility in that. So we were kind of talking about that before we hit record, of like, what does that even mean to create collaborations and partnerships and things like that. Like I said, doing that, even though I'm an introvert, like it's still possible.
Yes.
Doing that has been crucial and instrumental really in getting a reach and being exposed to other people, is doing things like this, like collaborations, like with you and Alyssa and like other people, you know what I mean? So my question to you, I guess, is that something that you were doing for your firm before you entered the education space, or is it more of an education space thing?
We'll be back after a quick break.
This episode of the Ambitious Bookkeeper Podcast is sponsored by my brand new free training, The Ultimate Guide to Creating a Profitable Bookkeeping Business. In just 1 hour, you will learn 3 keys to creating and launching a profitable bookkeeping business. We will map out your path to creating a bookkeeping or accounting business that keeps you in control of your time, priorities, and expertise. From someone who built a six-figure firm on part-time hours. That's right. You can stay in control of your time, keep family as your priority, and serve your clients well. It just takes a little strategy up front, and I'm going to help you with that during this free training. So head over to the show notes to sign up now for the next training and find out how you can choose the work you do, kick imposter syndrome to the curb, use tech to be super efficient, which all leads to a profitable business. Just head on over to ambitiousbookkeeper.com/training, and I will see you there.
Yeah, I love that. And by the way, I don't know if they'll also see the video, but I just wanted to share. I loved how when Serena's like, yeah, I'm an educator and an influencer, if I want to say that. The reason why I'm going to call that out is because she is. Obviously, you're listening to this podcast. Obviously, I know many people follow you, including myself, and I've shared for people to follow you. So I think the first thing is like to own that people are listening to you. And so you are going to have to lean into that role, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, a combination of both. So I commend you for it, because I know probably based on our personality types, it is more uncomfortable to say those things or to accept that role, right? But you are one. So let's just put that out there, okay?
Believe me, like I went to teach at one of Alyssa's retreats, and some of the women at the retreat had not really ever met me or weren't aware of me. And so I remember one of them telling me like, yeah, before I came, I was looking at like the agenda and saw that you were a guest teaching. And I like went to look you up, and like I just thought you were like an online influencer. I didn't know that you were like an actual accountant.
Yeah.
It's like, that's hilarious.
And you're like, wait a second, I thought it was the other way around. Like you would think that they would know the other thing about you, right? Yeah. It's just amazing. So yeah, to answer your question directly, I have always led with education. So just to go back a little bit into my background. So I come from a lineage of entrepreneurs. My grandmother was an entrepreneur. My mother is an entrepreneur. I was an entrepreneur, and she had 6 kids. So my mother is a mother entrepreneur, and 4 out of the 6 kids are all entrepreneurs. Okay. So we like literally have it in our blood. And so as an entrepreneur, something you learn really quickly is continuous learning and educating is critical to your success. Yeah. Right. So I learned that early on. And so when I actually transitioned in my early 20s and 30s to practice accounting, bookkeeping, and taxes, and I was really leading with this opportunity to be an advisor and a partner with my small business owners, I felt like, how can I create that partnership really from the inside out? How can they trust that I'm really locking arms, that I'm on their side? So in the beginning of every appointment I'd have in my practice, they would be shocked because they're like, we came to get our taxes done. Why are you giving us a class? Like, they're like, you're literally giving us a class. And I'm like, because we're not going to be able to build a foundation if you don't understand what I'm saying. We literally need to bring the fundamentals in. I need to make sure you understand the basic language I'm going to use every time we meet, whether it's monthly, quarterly, annually. We need to be on the same page. And so the first meeting was always education. It was like a class. Like it was, I would call it a small business consulting session to not scare them. But it was really like, here is bookkeeping and tax 101 for you in case you never took that class, which many entrepreneurs, if they don't have a financial background, they don't take that class. Yeah. And so I've been leading with education pretty much ever since I started my career back in the early 2000s. So late 1999, around there. Yeah.
I love that. And I also want to point out, like what you said is, I called it this because I didn't want to scare them. Yeah. And so I just want to give permission to our listeners that sometimes you can call things something that is not normal for our industry to call it. You can name it whatever is going to make sense to your clients and keep them comfortable and feel open to working with you and trusting you. So you can name things whatever you need to and deliver something a little bit different.
Yeah. And it's so funny because when you just said that, I'm like, yes, there was no trickery there.
Yeah.
I wasn't at all intending to like trick them, but I wanted them to embrace the opportunity. So when you use words like consultation or session or appointment, they're used to those words, right? So like, oh, we're just going to an appointment. But I'm going to be really honest here, Serena. They were shocked. Sometimes I'd have people like the men, and I'm just going to say that the men would be like there with their arms crossed, like, what are we doing here? Like, I didn't come to school. I came to get my taxes done or have her help me set up my QuickBooks. Like, what is she doing? And I would kind of have to just be like, hey guys, let me explain and the thing is, by the way, I just want to go back. I would have already explained this on the call. So when we had a discovery call, I've already told them that I lead with education and that we're going to be learning on our first session. But I don't tell them that's pretty much the whole session. And so when they come in and I start kind of going through this really kind of advisory consultative role that I've always played, like at first some love it. They're like, oh my God, no one's ever talked to me this way before. And some clients would actually be like, wait, what am I paying you for? Like, I didn't pay you for this. And so about 5 to 10 minutes into the session, I would have to read the room. And sometimes I'd have to stop because of exactly what you said. Like, I didn't want to mislead them and them feel like I'm not serving them. And so I'd have to tell them, hey, you know what? Let me remind you what I said, that I'm going to lead with making sure that we're on the same page. That may take 15 minutes based on your background and your literacy. This may take the entire hour and a half that we're here together. And then kind of like at that point, they would be like, okay, and then they would kind of calm down because some would put their guards up and think like I was giving them something they didn't ask for because of, like you said, they may be feeling misled on what the session was really about. So I agree. I think you need to call it something that's a little open-ended. So that way, when you decide to do what you're going to do in the session, they don't feel misled.
Yeah. I'm just thinking of like times that I've experienced this from the customer perspective, mainly with like really good doctors and like chiropractors. So I've been to multiple different chiropractors, and one stands out in my mind of one that I used to see because he would not do any adjustments until you had that first session where they kind of did like the analysis on your posture and gave you some education on like what, why, and how we're doing what we do. And I felt so well taken care of by that chiropractor because I understood what the heck was happening to my body. Yeah. And same with doctors. There's been doctors like that too. The ones that really take the time to explain the advice that they're giving you and talk about their approach. Like, my approach is more holistic and this is why, and blah, 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 blah. Like, think about how well like you feel taken care of in that situation. So I just wanted to highlight that and food for thought.
Yeah, such a great example. By the way, I love that you did that. I'm a lover of analogies, but I really am not good at them. Just so you know.
I didn't think I was either, but that was pretty good.
No, that was excellent, by the way. That was excellent. You know why? Because you had me remember I would go with fitness. Like, I know a lot of us probably can relate to fitness trainers or any type of health and wellness that we've had. Like if we got a coach around health and wellness, and I've always appreciated the ones that are like, they don't just go straight, okay, let's start working out. It's like, no, can we explain to you what the program's going to be like? This is what I'm going to take you through. I'm going to be very careful based on your needs. Because you go there already pumped, like, yeah, it's a boot camp, kick my butt, and then they kind of calm you down and they're like, wait, let me explain it to you because I want to make sure this is really like, we're both on the same page. And I have stuck more to those opportunities and those programs and the ones that are just like, I'm just going to kick your butt. And then you're just like, no, not into that, Yeah.
I think that probably comes back to if you're a lifelong learner, you're naturally going to be curious about why it is the way that they do the things that they do. There might be clients that that's not a fit for, and they just want you to come in and do the thing and not involve them. So you get to decide what type of clients you want to work with, obviously. But like, if you want to take on that education role and get to the point where you are more consultative and educational, then this is a great first step.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that because I just want to be very honest about who is maybe listening. And the reason why I say this specifically is because I've had so many colleagues hear my approach and they're like, Mariette, no. Like, we go in there, we do our thing. We're not trying to educate. We're not trying to even have the client get in there. We want to get in and want to get out. And we really want them to have as little contact or access to the work until we're done. And so again, that's to your prerogative. It's your business model. You can design your business as you see fit. But I think, as Serena just mentioned, I want to really highlight this. Then you need clients that's what they want, that they want to be like completely out. They don't want to be educated, almost like they want to be unaware until you're telling them it's time for them to see. Where in my case, I'm completely the other way around. I want my clients to be aware and to have their lenses nice and clear at all times, because this may sound a little dramatic, okay, but I do use this with my clients. I tell them, if I'm not here tomorrow, for whatever reason, don't take it like scary, but if I'm not here tomorrow, I need you to be able to take the reins. Like, I need you to be able to take the reins of your business anytime, any day, because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But that was, again, my business model. So that's why I did it that way.
Yeah. And that could also mean just like understanding enough of what is happening in your own business to be able to hire the next bookkeeper or whatever, right? To your point, I have like one or two clients that they don't need things explained to them from the financial statements because they have finance backgrounds. So you just, like you said, read the room. Like, I know those people I can just send the reports to and they're fine.
Yeah. And those are our favorite clients, by the way.
But yeah, if that's the type of role that you want to take with your clients, that's totally fine. Just make sure that that's the right fit for them and that's what they're expecting as well. And so always comes back to those initial conversations and setting expectations.
Absolutely.
So when we talked about the collaborations and intentional networking topic, well, you gave me a whole slew of topics that we could have talked about, and we might just have to have a whole dang series.
Exactly.
We're trying to keep this one kind of focused.
Yeah, I was a little scared for Sarita because I'm like, let's definitely have a pre-call before the podcast because this can go in so many different ways. And I want to make sure we give value and we stay a little focused.
But yeah, it's great that you're able to show how your business can evolve different from where you started out. And mine too, like I never really intended on being in this space of educating or mentoring others in the industry. Really, even though I've always had an interest in that, it wasn't like, that was not my original vision. So when did you get to the point where you were like, okay, like I need to go all in on educating?
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to point out that you just called it on yourself. Like, you're like, I always had interest in it, but I didn't know that's where I was going.
Right.
I think that's what it is that we always have something inside of us. Honestly, every single person, I'm such a huge believer that we all have a bigger purpose. We all know we can create bigger impact. We all can truly leave our blueprints like on this planet, like in this world in our lifetime. We just don't all take the time to figure what that is. Or we keep on putting it down and being like, oh, that's just something cool, or that's an interest, or that's a hobby, but can I really go all in on that? And so, to be honest, I had that my entire life. Like, I know all through my school career, I mean, from early stage all the way to high school, I would always tutor. I'd always be the one that want to help. I would be the teacher's aide, in college. I did a volunteer income tax program, which was VITA by the IRS, because I wanted to continue teaching. All through my practice from 2008 to 2019, which was when I officially transitioned. 2020 was when I was officially full-time educator. I would always educate. I was partnering with the Small Business Administration, with SCORE, with other organizations to do classes, Chamber of Commerce. So I was actually always educating. I just didn't really know what that was called. So interesting enough, in 2014, I had a complete, I wouldn't call it epiphany or a breakdown, but something in between where I knew something wasn't right. I was not feeding my soul, which I could feel it, even though I had my children, I had my family, I had a great community. My soul was unfulfilled. Like, I could feel it. And so I realized at that point, and I was about 14, 15 years into the accounting industry. So that could have been part of it. Okay, let's just be honest.
When it happens.
Yeah, that could have been part of it. So I always say everything happens in a weekend, because when I say I'm going to go all in, I mean, like, I will literally tell my family, my friends, I'm going to lock myself away. Sometimes it's in a hotel room for a couple of days. I just want to be alone for a few days. And I just want to figure it out. I just want to think about what it is. I give myself white space to just be quiet and figure it out. So it was early 2014 and I had my little white space. I think it was over just a few days. And I realized, you know what it is? I started looking at all the things that I do, and they were all very professional related. Like my conferences were by the IRS, or they were always by like an accounting or tax organization, but very professional, very continued education, related, but not so much transformative or fulfilling. So number one, I realized I'm not really hanging out with people that like excite me or fulfill me. And then I started looking at the programs. I read a lot of books. I joined a lot of programs. And those were, again, very structural, like how to build your business, how to continue growing. But they weren't really about what is making you happy. Why are you still doing what you're doing? So I did a quick research on a transformative conference. And that's when I attended my very first one. It was called Scaling New Heights by Joe Woodard and the Woodard team. And actually over like that weekend, I booked my tickets. I remember that was spring of 2014. And that conference was summer of 2014. I had two babies at that time, 2 and 4. My husband thought I was nuts, but it was like, I'm going, because it was in San Antonio and I'd only gone to local conferences at that time. So I booked my tickets. I took my parents with me because they were going to babysit my kids when I was at the conference. And it was at this beautiful hotel, and they got to enjoy the hotel while I was in a 3-day conference. Serena, that was it. I like realized that there are people that not only do what we do, but they're creating impact. They want to feel fulfilled and happy and joy. And they're doing more than just accounting and bookkeeping and taxes. Yeah. That was the biggest thing. Is I felt like, okay, but I have a great business. Isn't that enough? For me personally, Mariette Martinez, I'm only speaking for myself because I don't want anyone to think that you should do this. Just doing the professional side wasn't enough. Like I had something more I needed to give, and it wasn't being given in my business. And so that's when I needed to figure out, what does that transformation look like? And that started in 2014, and it pretty much is still going now, but it took me about 6-7 years. And then that's when I transformed from practitioner to educator.
Wow. That's a really cool story. I hope that people got goosebumps like I did listening to that. And if that's you, where you're like, something isn't fulfilling, you're always going to have times in your business that you're not lit up. If the majority of your time is where you're not lit up, then you need to change something.
Yeah.
And like you said, you're only going to get that clarity when you allow yourself the downtime. So when it seems the most inopportune time to take a break is probably when you need it the most.
Yes. I got chills when you said that. I've talked to people about this many times, and many people have asked me, how did you do this? And the beauty of this is that many people have done it since. That's what gives me the goosebumps, is that I believe I have given a little bit of motivation or inspiration for other people to do this kind of big leap. Right. But what happens is that when you're like, there's no way I can take time off. There's no way I can close my door for 2 days. There's no way I can leave my partner with my kid. All of those are no, 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 no's. Like you're not giving yourself the chance that you deserve and that you desperately desire to do what you need to do, which is, yes, I need to close my doors. Yes, I need quiet time. Yes, I need my partner to watch my kids or my loved ones, because yes, I need to change something that's not right in my life, really, not only my business, but my life. And so we need to stop with the no's, and we need to create yeses, because until you do, you will not do this. Like you will not create the space and the opportune time, which there's never an opportune time, right? But you won't do it because you're so full of no's. Like you need to switch those no's to yeses. It's so important to do that.
I agree. So the whole accounting industry and the typical education that you receive in it is, like you said, it is like kind of dry and buttoned up and all that stuff. And I think that's one thing that you and I and Alyssa and lots of others that are now starting to come up in the industry are doing differently. And it's not accepted by everybody, and that's okay. Those aren't our people.
Yes, exactly.
Those people aren't listening to this podcast. I can guarantee
exactly.
it. But the one thing that all of those type of education situations are missing really is that inspiration.
It's so interesting when I decided to go into education, which what I always get chills, and I'm looking at Serena again. I don't know if y'all see the video, but her and I actually were doing this journey almost around the same exact time. We also had a lot of the same mentors and guides, and we were in the same programs learning a lot of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would consider myself pretty new because my learning center was founded in 2020. So we're only talking about 2-ish years here. And so I have been testing out like what kind of education, intentional education is what I call it, I wanted to design and deliver to my community. And the biggest part of my kind of execution and action taking is I wanted to lead with inspiration, motivation, mindset, but I was so worried if people would buy that. Like, especially since we're literally teaching our peers, we're teaching bookkeepers and accountants, and they are so, I love you guys. Okay. So just let me say that we're very linear. Okay. We're very linear. We're very left brain. As soon as you start bringing the right brain and your whole heart into training and education, they're kind of like, what is this? And again, it's because of what we've been used to forever in regards to how we've been taught or what we believe education is or what it looks like. Mm-hmm. And so it's been a journey for me to incorporate mindset and inspiration and motivation and mentorship into my education and more into my community that I'm building and nurturing, because I believe that is key. If you don't believe that this is important to you, and belief is mindset, belief is not the technical side. Belief comes from your heart. Doing comes from the left brain. Believing comes from the right brain. So if you don't believe what I'm saying, you're not going to do anything I'm saying.
You don't believe it has an impact.
Yeah, exactly. So I have been definitely bringing in a lot of mindset. What I decided, Serena, and I'd love to hear how you do it in your programs, is I decided to kind of make sure I feel okay with the way I am bringing in motivation and inspiration and mindset and still serving my community, is I bring in coaches. Okay. So even though I love mindset, I've had a coach for almost 15 years, and I have coaches for different things. I have mindset coach and I have a business coach. Then let's say I'm doing a special project, I'd have a content creator coach. I've had a speaker coach. I've had a lot of coaches. So what I feel like, if I was part of my community coming in, I came in for Mariette to teach me how to be a bookkeeper, learn the fundamentals. I'm very into business and financial literacy. Again, early stage people that really want to go all in and wish they would have learned this before they decided entrepreneurship. That's what I'm teaching you. So I'm giving you the fast track to do things right with all of my 20 plus years. But then when the mindset stuff comes in, I don't think they came in for that. Right, Serena? Like, I don't think they bought Mariette's program.
This is a mindset block for you.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? You're right. It is a mindset block. Thank you, Serena. So I'm obviously working through my own blocks right now on this podcast. We all are. So what I've decided to do is bring in coaches, and that what I do is I'll transition in the program. Let's say, I'll give you an example. If we're in a session and it's 12 weeks, then we'll have like 1 or 2 days that are very technical. And then one day the mindset coach will come in. And it will all be about her and about her working on our mindset. And when I say we're working on our mindset, I'm working on my mindset too. So I'm there alongside them as their peer working on our mindset. And that's my expert coming in. So that's how I do it. I'd love to know how you do it.
I like that approach. So I would say I probably do a little bit of both. Anyone who listens to this podcast has heard me talk about mindset. And I know you've watched and you've participated in some of my workshops.
Yes.
And the first day is really about mindset. And I do that coaching and I talk them through where I've taken myself through. Like, I used to be that same way of like, it's black and white, it's linear. I did not realize how much the way you perceive things and the way you think about things and the way you talk about things really affects the outcome. And for a long time in my life, and I don't know if I've even said this on the podcast, but I'm pretty sure I talk about it in the workshops. I just thought that I was just not as happy of a person as most people. Like, I just thought I inherently had like this gene for being less happy. And I did not realize that I could control that. Yes, some of us are more predisposed to having difficulties based on our life experiences, and maybe there is some genetics in there. But I would say about 6 years ago, I realized how much I did have control over that. And I think that really was when I started my entrepreneurial journey.
Wow. Do you know that my heart just got so full when you said that, just because like obviously that was a limiting belief or a block or whatever you want to call it, right? Because in mindset, we sometimes call it different things, but I feel like that was like such a breakthrough. I have been telling myself this for whatever, I'll just say like, I'll just pretend 40 years, right? Because many times we've been telling ourselves things for 40 years. Okay. And now it's like, I just realized it wasn't true.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you just have to sit with that, by the way, because that's devastating. Like, why have I been
my
telling
whole
myself
reality is
something?
turned upside down. What do you mean I can choose to be happy? Like, I know it's not that easy, but there's like things that you can do. You can shift the way of your thinking. Another, like, I know you've probably read it, to be honest, because the same coach that we've worked with is the one that recommends this book over and over again. It's Happy Pocket Full of Money.
Yes. Yeah.
That one it's mind blowing.
Yeah. I think I have it somewhere back there.
It is mind blowing. And that is like a really good place to start. There's so many books that are a great place to start, but yeah, it all starts with just realizing that, yeah, like everything that you've been telling yourself is probably a lie.
Yeah, I know. Gosh, I mean, I think that is a whole episode in itself. And maybe we could even bring one of our favorite mindset people to talk about it. But yeah, I'll just say this. That's why I prefer my mindset coaches to come in, because I will have learners, I call them community members, have that breakthrough literally during my program, which is like a very technical program, building their bookkeeper business. But then they'll have that kind of mindset breakthrough. And I'm going to be really vulnerable here. I don't know what to do with that. I almost feel like I shouldn't deal with that. Like that's too big for me. And so when my mindset coach is supporting me, as she'll literally join my program for the 12 weeks, by the way, like I'll have her join and she'll open it up and say, hey, if y'all have breakthroughs like that, you contact me personally, like you call me.
Yeah.
She'll have some extra sessions for them to join her separately, because I have had many people have those breakthroughs and I don't know how to deal with it. I'm being honest. Like, I'm like, what do I do?
That's okay. That's not your zone of genius. I like to give people like not the surface level of mindset, but like just enough to start opening their mind to the possibilities. And then if you want to go deeper, there's options, right? Like you can hire a mindset coach. You can, for some people, like and this is one thing that I realized when I started working with a coach one-on-one a couple of years ago, I was like, after the end of our 3 months together, I was like, I think I just need therapy.
Which, by the way, that's probably what was happening in those 3 months too. So
yeah, for sure. They just can't call it therapy, but giving my students the initial, like, this is part of entrepreneurship. When you decide to become an entrepreneur, it's going to be the biggest mindset shift you're ever going to make. And this is what's going to open up your personal growth journey. So I do a little bit of it, but I have no qualms about being like, I think you should hire a mindset coach or a life coach or whatever, depending on what situation they're in. And some people are going to be open to it and some aren't, but they can still get the rest of the value out of the program that they came for. And maybe, just maybe, that little thing will stick with them, and maybe a year down the road when they're ready for it, they'll listen to a replay and be like, this is what I needed now, but I knew where to find it.
And I agree. And I would say just the kind of tie in education in general, I think that's why it's important that you think through, how are you going to support those students or those community members when they have those breakthroughs? Because many times they will have them months later or a year later. Maybe they had that moment in a challenge, not necessarily in one of your programs, but now they're ready to go all in with you, Serena. And so like, how are you nurturing that for when they are ready to go all in? And I think maybe you want to talk a little bit about, if you want to, that's a lot of the times the reasons why we'll have more of these challenges or opportunities for people to start kind of getting to be part of our community, knowing it's going to take them a little while to get comfortable, to open up, to feel nurtured, to feel connected, and then eventually join a program of ours.
Well, I know that we went through the same program to learn how to do the challenge method that we use, right? There's lots of different methods out there, but you and I use a method that's called the paid challenge or the paid boot camp method, right? So are you still doing that as well?
Yeah. So, it's interesting. We were in a challenge, which was a 5-day challenge. And if anyone's ever been in one, I'll just share. The idea is for you to really have these breakthroughs and to take action quickly, which really just puts fire under your butt, to be honest. Like if you are an action taker, a challenge will get you fueled and on fire, but then you have to keep going. That's the idea. And then hopefully the host or whoever is providing the challenge has the energy and they're contagious and they're just like supporting you on this next step. And so I've always loved the challenge idea. It's just, it takes a lot of work. So if we're going to be honest here, and I know, Serena, we're like, we need to also be very honest about like what is really involved. A challenge is not just you like going out there and giving your all. It's a lot of behind the scenes. And again, maybe that can be an entirely different podcast episode. And so what I've realized is I had to take a step back a little bit because I had to build my team for that. I realized that I love challenges and I'm a huge believer, and it's so beautiful to get people going and started and moving along in this really hyper momentum in just 3 or 4 or 5 days. But I don't want to do that by myself because it's
nearly impossible once you break the 50 to 100 person mark.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
You need
so my goal in 2021 and in 2022 has been to build a team. And again, having a team as a content creator is very different than having a team as an accountant, right? Like completely different. So I've been building a team. I have a team of 3 ladies now, plus myself, that support me on challenges, on content creation, on design. And now I'm definitely at a point where I can go back and kind of go back into that strategy. But I just would say if anybody wants to do that strategy, it's so great to try it on your own, but then you're going to realize there's quite a bit of moving pieces, and having a support system and having actual systems like the tech stack and all of the background things that you have to be lined up. It's good to go back and kind of set that up now that you know what's really involved, and then relaunch again with that all set in place.
Yeah, for sure. The program that we both went through specifically, because there's free challenges, right?
Yeah.
The reason, at least this is my reason for doing a paid challenge, is that I want people that are really going to show up, because a lot of people will sign up for a free challenge and never follow through. I am guilty of that 100 times over. I'll be like, yep, sounded good in the moment when I signed up for it, but I did not make the time for it. So that is one of the reasons why I charge a small fee for my challenges. And I don't know if you're doing paid challenges as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we both have heard it many times. People that pay more attention, right? A lot of our mentors and coaches have told us that. And I completely agree. Even with my workshops that I know I can do them for free, I'll do them for, $27 or $97. First of all, because I know I'm going to bring that like way massive value for that, but also because it's true. I know they're coming there to pay attention. When you're paying 27 or 47 for something, for some reason now you're all like pen and paper and ready to go.
Yeah.
Right.
And
but
so
if
you
it's
get
free,
better
it's
results.
like, oh, it's in the background, right? Like I'm just listening to it in the background because it's free. So it's so true. You're so on point on that.
Yeah. And then the other part of that is it does help compensate you for your time delivering the challenge, because a lot, like you said, goes into it. Like we prep months in advance to put on a challenge. For the past 2 months, my team has been putting together the next challenge that isn't going to run until the end of September.
Oh, wow. See, I'm glad that you mentioned that though, because again, I'm sure that's a whole different episode, but like there is literally a timeline and there's the different things that you're doing. So that way, when you do this challenge, I mean, especially I know at your stage, like you really like wanted to obviously deliver to your community, but also there may be a tail end at the end where you're going to upsell a course or a program.
Right.
All of that needs to be like in line. So that way, all you do is show up and just do what Serena does. Yeah. But if you're worrying about all those other pieces, then you're right. It's not going to be the challenge you want it to be. And a lot of times, to be honest, a lot of us in the content creator space, those of you that are listening, we're doing challenges to create 5 to 6 or even 7-figure results. Like, I just want to be really honest about that. Like, that's what our goals are. Our goals are pretty big. And so that's why we're planning. So it can just go really, really well.
Yeah, for sure. So a lot of planning goes into it, a lot of strategy, but so paid challenges, great idea. Another thing that like, I remember when I first was in the program that we took together, the first time I went through it, I was like, this isn't going to work for my industry. My industry doesn't do challenges. They're not doing fitness challenges. They're not doing like nobody's going to be interested in a boot camp. And boy, was I wrong. Like that just goes to show that like we all have our mindset blocks. We all have the box that we think that our industry should be in. And I just really want to encourage people to think outside of the accounting box, because there's a whole world out there of stuff that works.
Yeah. I'd love to just hear, what were those first few things or pivots or almost like validations that you're like, this does work? Do you remember what those things were to really like validate that this is where you need to be and this is how you're going to go ahead and connect with your learners?
I think the first one was that, well, even though I kind of had that block of like, this isn't going to work for my industry initially, when I finally was like, I'm just going to let go. I'm just going to try and see what happens. When you step into that mindset of this is just a test and I have no expectations of what the end results are, and I'm just going to show up and give my best and know that if nothing else, if nobody joins the main program at the end of the challenge, I'm still going to learn. They're still going to learn. Everyone's still going to get some sort of result. And so when you approach it from that perspective, it makes things just turn out better. The universe is now on your side. So yeah, I started thinking of it in that way. And I was like, well, what can I do to make it so that at least have the chance of people wanting to sign up? And it was a tweak in the language that I used. And instead of calling it a boot camp, I called it a workshop. Because just like with your clients, how you're like, it's our initial, what do you call it? Your initial consultation?
Yeah, small business consultation.
My small business consultation, mine was, this is the bookkeeping biz workshops. So everyone in our industry takes workshops for continuing ed. They go to workshops to learn how to do QuickBooks. You go to workshops. So I was like, I'm just going to call it a workshop.
That's, you know, what's so brilliant about it is that I was not intentional like you to start changing my language to workshops, because I do workshops too. But now that I think about it, like, oh my gosh, you're so right. There must have been something subconsciously, like people don't want to be challenged. They want to go work at the workshop. You know, because that's how our community thinks, right?
Yeah. And also it felt more in alignment with charging for it, because it was never free challenge. And sometimes challenges are, it's just assumed that they're free. So I was like, I want to make sure people realize it's not free. Obviously, I'm very transparent about that, but people are more willing to pay for a workshop than a challenge. And I didn't feel like the word boot camp was really in alignment for what I was trying to achieve. And that was just a personal thing. So I was like, I'm just going to play with the words.
Yeah, I love that. Now, okay. So I just want to ask you, so you were playing with the words. Now I want to just pick at this for a moment. So did you do any work on yourself to start playing with the words? Did you like, had you done any work on around the importance of branding, the importance of language, the importance of copy? Because I feel like there was something that may have come before with you knowing that you should play with your words. Was there something before that?
Yeah, I would say like, I actually don't really identify as a numbers person. I am a very creative person. Like if we rewind back to my childhood, what I was doing, spending my time on was playing music, drawing, painting, doing art. Like I was a very creative kid. And I know that's not the case for a lot of accountants. So that's probably part of it. And the other part of it is that like, I really do approach things from this place of detachment from the outcome. And I try to stress that a lot to people. It's easier said than done, but once you do it once and then you see results, you realize how beneficial it is, because it really does shift everything. And I can't even explain it.
Yeah, well,
without going into quantum physics.
Well, just hearing you, I can see where you lead in more with that creative, open mindset versus that, you know, linear, more accounting kind of thinking. And the way I explain it, so I'll just kind of share the way I'll explain it. Yeah. Like if I was trying to explain it, and it's based on what I was hearing from you in regards to you letting go of the outcome. And I teach this in my programs too. And I share it in regards to how many of us are goal-oriented, which includes me. You know, I've always been goal-oriented, which is very linear, where it's the number, it's the metric. How do I get there? How do I check that performance? It's like you are very, very tied, connected to the outcome. But then what happens when you start working on your mindset, you actually start going into this creative mind and this open mind of being more intentional. Mm-hmm. And that's why I use intentional a lot. And the word intention is actually completely disconnected to the outcome. If you actually look it up, the intention is you're doing something from a soulful level. You're doing it because you feel it's right, because it feels good, but you have no attachment to what's going to happen at the end. You actually don't even know what's going to happen. You just intend to do something, hoping things turn out okay, but you have a complete detachment to the outcome. And as soon as you have a complete detachment to the outcome, that releases all of that energy that you get or you have to have when you're doing a goal, when you're setting a goal, when you're trying to reach that goal. All of that energy, which it's positive energy, because if you're positive about your goal, you're excited. But let's be honest, there's also a lot of aggressive and negative energy when you're thinking about goals, right? Yeah. Especially when you're feeling bad about not reaching them. But with an intention, you don't care whether you reach it or not, because you have no attachment to what happens. You just intended to do something right because it feels good. And I feel like that's what you're saying, or at least that's how I have learned myself to also like take action. And if it turns out right, I always call it spaghetti on the wall. My intention was to feed you something delicious. So I'm sorry it didn't sit right. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I really intended for it to be a good experience for you. And now I'm going to have to learn from it and kind of move on, you know? Yeah. And so that's kind of the way I see it, is like, whether you intended it with no outcome, no attachment, or if it's a goal, then it's like, oh, you have all that pressure of what happened, you know, did I get the outcome I wanted? And when we release that, then we kind of have this more free spirited way of thinking.
Yeah. And I want to come back to like, I approach things from like a level of detachment. Like it isn't always initially like that. I will approach things initially like, this is the goal, this is what we have to reach, because I'm very goal driven too. That's what has gotten me to where I was in my career. It's like a balance of both. Like, this is where I want to be. But I think that the other piece of it is that like, you can't be attached to the path that takes you there. So it's like, this is where I want to be. I'm going to just do one thing to get me closer that I think is the right direction, feels right, right? So back to that, like, this is what my soul tells me to do. Mm-hmm, yeah. What feels right. Just the next step. And then the rest of the path will be illuminated. But yeah, I take things like, I'm always testing and tweaking things, and then just realizing that whatever the result is, like whether you hit your goal or not, it does not mean anything about you as a person. It doesn't mean you're bad or good. It just is, right? And so that's where I'm saying, like, try to be detached, right? To the outcome of like, it just is, whatever happens is. It's not that you were good or you were bad or you're better or worse. Like, that's what you have to be detached from, like the meaning behind it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I'm glad you stated that, because obviously we wouldn't be where we're at if we were completely detached to our outcomes.
Right.
Right? Like, let's just be honest, right? Yeah. I mean, again, we got to where we are for that reason. And that's why I'll just give you a strategy I learned from another one of my coaches, Louise Henry. And she says what you can do in regards to the outcome is you can have a good, better, best. Mm-hmm. And so you create your outcomes, and now going back to the linear goals, because the goal is really the good, the better, best goal that I could have reached. But now it's like you have like that flexibility to be like, okay, obviously I'm trying to get somewhere now that I'm going back to my left brain and I'm going to take action, because we're always going from right brain to left brain, like all the time. But then if you have that good, better, best outcome, then you are not so hard on yourself. Like you said, you know, you're like, okay, I did good. So now I want to do better, right? Yeah. And that also grows. Like your good, better, best 2 years ago may be completely different than your good, better, best 2.5 years later, right?
Yeah. And that's like where you can tie it into, like, if you're doing a budget for a client, do 3 scenarios, show them the results from good, better, best, call it whatever you want.
But I love that. Yeah. There you are with your analogies, bringing it in again.
I just taught a lesson on that today in my group, so it's really fresh.
Oh my gosh,
but yeah, we talked about that, is providing 3 different scenarios, and they may start out the year with a budget, and that's the budget you adopt, but things change throughout the year. You have to make a pivot, whatever. You may end up achieving your profit goal, but the way that you got there was completely different than how you planned. And that's generally the case with successful businesses.
I just had like a vision, and I'm like, I think we probably could apply that where we're at is probably not where we thought we were going to be 2 years ago or 5 years ago. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That is so true. And that's entrepreneurship.
I know. Oh, well, okay. So we did not tackle all the topics, which is good. I hope we kind of stayed on topic. This was a really valuable conversation, and I'm like super excited to go back and listen to it and pull out some golden nuggets. But why don't you go ahead and give our listeners, like, where can they connect with you? What do you have going on in your world that people might be interested in?
Yeah. So where you can connect with me is masteryourbooks.com. So I've been trying to keep things very simple. I still have mariettemartinez.com, which was my practice for almost 20 years. So if you look me up there, go ahead, but it's a little dated. But I will get back to that soon because I do want to keep that. So masteryourbooks.com. What I'm into now, which hopefully Serena and I are aligned, is really getting back out there, creating human connections, speaking live at conference, hugging people if you're okay with that. No pressure. Right. And just really leaning into this intentional education idea with an opportunity to, again, bring in what I think is super important, which I think we talked a lot about, is mindset, and letting you all know that wherever you are and whatever stage you are in your life and your business, that we really need to be using our whole selves, our left brain, our right brain, and our whole heart. And that's really where I am putting all of my passion right now.
Awesome. So you will be at QuickBooks Connect later this year. Do you have anything that you for sure are going to be at coming up?
Yeah, so I will be at QuickBooks Connect in December 2022. I will be teaching a few private organizations. So I do teach privately for other organizations where I'll be traveling to them. I'll be part of an amazing experience, and hopefully y'all follow Heather Satterley and Liz Scott from the Appy Hour. They're also influencers and educators and leaders in the accounting, bookkeeping, and tax space. They're going to have a very cool experience called the Appy Hour Camp in September. I will be there, and I will be their official Appy Hour correspondent, which actually I'm glad I'm mentioning that, because the whole point is that we want you to know what it's like to be in these very kind of closer, more intimate experiences with leaders and influencers and educators in the accounting, bookkeeping, and tax, and even technology space. So every night at this camp, it's literally a camp retreat in September, I will be going live to share with you what we're doing, what it's like to be in a room with 20, 30-ish leaders, and what type of things that we talk about. And more importantly, what do we take with us, and how do we continue to impact our industry? So I'll be doing that in September, and then always partnering with Intuit and other organizations like SBA Score and some great organizations out there. So just follow me on Master Your Books, and on Instagram, I'm at Mariette Martinez MYB. We'll go and probably post that somewhere in the notes.
Yep.
And I'm happy to connect with you, and hopefully we'll do another episode to continue on this awesome conversation.
Yes. Thank you so much for taking the time to come on today. I'm glad we connected again and got this scheduled as quick as we did. So thank you for that.
Of course. This is so amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you to everyone who helps make this podcast possible. Content and interviews are produced by me, Serena Shoup. Our intro and outro music is written and performed by my brother, Ian Gilliam. Editing is also by Ian, using his awesome sound engineering skills along with Descript software. Hosting and publishing is by Buzzsprout, and you can check out the show notes for links to all of these amazing resources and resources mentioned in the episode.
Embrace ambition.